Hi, welcome again to Keith Explains. I don't know why you people watch this every week. I mean, I watch it because it's me, and all those people that write in tell me that they love the show and they love the content and they provide all the suggestions and everything. But most of you, I don't know. I've been reading about this for a long time. I haven't talked about it here. It's this whole energy crisis in California thing. I mean, we're now a year and a half into it. And last summer, I'm sure y'all lived here. I mean, you couldn't have been watching TV last summer because there was no electricity in the whole darn state. I mean, I was so worried that there'd be no electricity and like my mail server would be down and stuff. I sent a computer to a friend of mine in Boston to be the backup server, for the vast Keith Explains empire. So that, mail would get through and people that wanted to see Keith Explains, assuming they didn't live in California where they can actually watch Keith Explains, would still be able to get to the website. People in California couldn't get there because there'd be no power here. So my web server would be off, everyone's computer would be off. If you don't have electricity, I don't know how you live anymore. I mean, I suppose your cell phone might still work for a little while, till the big cell phone batteries and the antennas wore down or whatever. And you won't be able to recharge your cell phone, so you won't be able to talk to anyone. So after like a day and a half, all of California would be depressed because we'd have been alone in our houses, wouldn't be able to make toast. But, last summer, a huge electricity thing, there were some brownouts. But the big problem that happened is everyone's electricity rates went to like $1 million a kilowatt hour or something. Well, not mine, because I live in Santa Clara. Santa Clara has its own municipal utilities. And municipal utilities means you get to vote for the people that set your electric rates. And so they can't raise them too high. Now that's how it used to be everywhere in California. And then they had this great idea, which was, let's make electric rates lower by bringing competition in. And here's what we'll do. There are a couple big electric companies. Let's just talk about PG&E because that's what it is here. And PG&E owns all the wires that go into everyone's houses. And it's too hard to put more than one wire into everyone's house. So we got to leave PG&E owning the wires. Okay, so we made PG&E sell all the power plants to other people. In fact, we made PG&E sell all the power plants to friends of Dick Cheney. Near as I can tell from reading things. Enron, huge, fabulously successful business. They bought a bunch of power plants. Duke Energy bought a bunch of power plants. Halliburton probably bought power plants. I don't remember, but they used to be by Dick Cheney. I mean, just investor tycoons bought all PG&E's power plants, and they didn't even have to pay a lot of money for them because, I don't know, PG&E depreciated them or something. And now PG&E owns the wires. PG&E don't own the power plants. So PG&E has to buy power from all the power plants. And California legislators came up with this idea. Here's the stupidest part of the whole system. Normally, if you're going to buy something from a whole bunch of people, you take bids. Like if you're going to build a freeway, you put out a bunch of bids. Who wants to build a freeway? And then a whole bunch of companies go, well, I'll build that freeway for $17 million. Some other company goes, well, I'll build it for $15 million. And then, one company goes, well, I'll build it for $3 million. And so you give them $3 million, and then they start to build the freeway. And then they go, well, what were we thinking? And then they overcharge you, and you end up paying about $17 million for the freeway. But the idea was you accepted the lowest bid. So when we're buying power, California needs power. They put out bids to everyone. Everyone bids what they're willing to put power into the system for. And then they take the highest bid and they pay everyone that amount. This is like, suppose you need a 100 kilowatts. And you put out bids, and 9 guys all go, I'll gladly give you 10 kilowatts for $1 a kilowatt. And then one more guy goes, I'll give you 10 kilowatts, but it'll cost you $1,000 a kilowatt. Now, normally you'd go, well, maybe I don't need 100 kilowatts. Maybe I can get by with 90. But you can't do that with electricity because everybody needs electricity. You can't just call people and go, can you turn your shower down a little bit? We need a couple more kilowatts. Now, instead what they do is they take kilowatts from all 10 people and they pay each of them $1,000. Dumb, 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 dumb. Now, it's kind of started. And then people, the system took off, and then all of a sudden, people in San Diego were paying like $1,000 a kilowatt. People's electricity bill used to be like 40 bucks, suddenly paying 250, 300 bucks for electricity because they have air conditioners down there because it's hot and they run them all the time. So like electric rates through the roof, and everyone went, well, why is this happening? Why are we getting stiffed by the electric company in this way? And let me tell you why. Coming back to the topic. Game theory. Okay? See, the nice legislators figured, well, we're setting up an electric system, everyone will be nice, and it'll just work. No, okay? Money's involved. When money's involved, you get the little Harvard MBAs, you get people like me, the math geeks, that, can look at a function and can figure out how do we maximize our take from this function. So I'm sure, there were lobbyists and a whole bunch of people. I'm sure they knew even before they adopted this system that if you were a power generator, could arrange to just rake in the cash. If the system were that, well, we just, pay the highest guy, we pay everybody whatever the highest guy asks for. And all the power producers are going, man, we're going to make so much money, okay? Because they figured out how to game the system. And, since then, everyone's lights went out for a long time, and then they had a whole bunch of investigations. And in the beginning, everyone went, well, it's all obviously Governor Davis's fault. And then Governor Davis tried to fix it, and then they said, well, that's his fault too. So, side note, don't run for governor. It'll all be your fault. It's better if you're not a politician, then you can blame the politicians in charge. Although I'm not sure how you make money if you're not a politician. Maybe as a lobbyist. But we had this system, and then people were like, why are our electric rates sky high? And the electric rates were sky high because that's what they were supposed to be, okay? The people that really wanted the money arranged to get the money out of the system. And why did they do this? Because that's what the people that run companies want to do, okay? Companies want to figure out how to make as much money as possible. You don't have a shareholder meeting and have people sit around and go, well, I think we could make some money. Now, there's another option that would make us huge buckets full of money, but we're not going to do that because although technically legal, it doesn't strike us as nice. Okay? Shareholders don't care diddly about nice. Shareholders want money. Shareholders want their companies to make as much money as possible. CEOs are honor bound to do whatever is legal to make money for their company. I read a little cartoon a long time ago that said, imagine one day we inexplicably made murder legal. Most people are still not going to murder people because in addition to being illegal, it's wrong. But CEOs care nothing about wrong. They merely care about legal and illegal. If it's legal, they'll do it. If you can murder the chief scientist of your competitor legally, you're obligated to do it as a CEO. This is another reason not to be a CEO. There are lots of reasons to be a CEO. Apparently you get everything. Like, penthouse apartments and floor seats at Knicks games, and you get to fly anywhere you want on any plane, ever. You just get a little card that says, I'm a CEO, and you get to the front of the airport line, and they go, well, yes, Mr. Gates, first class. Anyway, that aside, I don't know why people are surprised by this, because to me, it was no surprise at all. It goes back forever. Like, I can remember I was in high school. Now, in high school, what do people care about? Well, most people care about cars and girls. But there were those of us that cared about grades. I didn't care a lot about grades, but there were people that were really into the whole grade thing. My GPA is higher than your GPA. There was this competition to be valedictorian. And valedictorian, I think, means biggest geek person in the school, because it's the person with the highest GPA. And in my little hometown, we had all the rules. GPA, A's are worth 4, B's are worth 3, multiply that by the credits, you divide it by the number of credits you took, add them up over your 4 years of high school, and you get your high school GPA. Person with the highest GPA is, by definition, the valedictorian. So you say, well, this is an okay system. This is the way things work. Except, of course, since it's a system, since it involves math, people can game it. For example, year before, someone in the class before me sued the school board because they didn't want to have to take a gym class. Because advanced placement classes, if you got an A, it was worth 5 on your GPA. whereas a normal non-advanced placement class in A was only worth a 4. So the fact that this person would have to take a gym class, because gym classes were required, the gym class would only be, they could get an A in the gym class, but that would only be a 4 points for 3 credits. Whereas if they could take an advanced placement class in that period, they'd be able to get 5 points at, 3 credits, and therefore their GPA would be higher. And at the time I thought this is the stupidest thing in the world. But no, this is a person trying to game the system. This is a person that knows that they need a little extra to, to get over some AB they got back when they were a sophomore or something in advanced algebra, that they need to get a little edge to get them ahead to be valedictorian. It's just, there's that. People want, what else? I'm thinking bookies. Bookies are, well, they're nice people that take your bets and then pay out. Now, in a perfect world, bookies should make no money. I mean, that's the whole concept of odds. If you have the odds of something happening, well, you want to set the odds so that the number of people betting on each side is roughly the same. So that no matter which way it goes, the bookie doesn't lose money because he's going to pay things out. So, if you set the odds at 2 to 1, well, you either want to get twice as many people betting on one side as the other, twice as much money, or, for most bookies, you want to have someone go out and put a baseball bat in the kneecap of one of the skaters so she won't win. Bookies, you either got to set up the odds so that you make your money, or you got to arrange things in the real world so that you make your money. Again, it's game theory. I don't know why the little electric company people didn't think of this, okay? But it's never going to get any better. I mean, right now, we've screwed up the game theory because they have just decreed electricity prices will be thus, which you can't game that, or can you? I mean, of course you can game it. You can game anything. See, this was why it was better when this is why I personally like the idea of municipal power systems, because the state just owns everything, and it's really not in their interest to, well, it is in their interest to, screw one group of people versus another group. It's just that screwing happens in the state capitol as opposed to in boardrooms, because, then lobbyists would be involved and they'd go, well, I mean, big industry, can't afford to make stuff in California with what our electric rates are. So how about if we give big industry an electric rate decrease? And then we have to raise everyone else's rates to make up for it. And in this way, industry will be able to stay here and jobs will stay here. So the jobs stay here, except everyone who has those jobs has to pay more for electricity. I mean, there's really no good solution to this. Well, there's one good solution to this. I've mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. Keith Statenfield, benevolent dictator for life. You put me in charge of this country, and I guarantee you 3 things. I guarantee you benevolence. I guarantee you that I will rule dictatorially, and I guarantee you that it'll be for life, because that's the way it ought to be. Game theory. I mean, just some of you, if you'd all paid attention in college, I wouldn't have to go through this, but whatever. Okay, Senator Torricelli. He's a guy in New Jersey. Just yesterday, he decided he's not running for senator again. He's only been a senator for 6 years. I mean, you'd think in 6 years, what could you do to really screw up? He really screwed up. Let me tell you what Senator Torricelli did to screw up. Senator Torricelli took money from people. And he apparently is the only politician that has done this. Ever. Because if other politicians had done it, they'd all be embarrassed, wouldn't they? I mean, that's what they got him for. He took money from a guy. He didn't even take money. He took things. He took a Rolex. It probably wasn't even a real Rolex. It was probably one of them New York Rolexes. $7 or something. Had 2 L's and a Y where the X should be. A Raleigh. But he took money from his constituents. We don't even know if he passed laws for this guy or nothing. I mean, apparently, politicians take money all the time. I mean, Governor Davis has $40 million in his war chest. Governor Davis makes $180,000 a year. I mean, kind of do the math. Figure, let's suppose, I mean, he doesn't pay rent in the house. He buys a couple suits. Let's assume he can put away a good $150,000 a year. So in 6 years, he could put away $900,000. And then there'd be interest. Maybe in 6 years that'd be $100,000. So that's only a scant 400 times away from $40 million, which is how much money he has. So where did he get all this money from? He took it from people. Apparently it's okay for Governor Davis to take money from people. It's not okay for Senator Torricelli to take money from people. I have no idea what this country is coming to. Either it's okay to take money from people, or it's not okay to take money from people. I mean, the guy that Senator Torricelli took money from is in jail. Apparently it's illegal to give money to a politician too, which makes me feel bad because I've mailed off a couple checks over the years. I mean, not big checks, because I don't have a lot of money. Because let me explain to you, access TV shows are not as lucrative as a lot of people think they are. A lot of people think that, it's just cash and stuff rolling in for me all the time. But no, it really dribbles in. I mean, big dribbles, huge, $100,000 every couple weeks, but dribbles. Sometimes a whole 4 or 5 days will go by and I'll get nothing above 100, and it's really distressing. Anyway, so now after he decided, Senator Torricelli, that he took money from people, his opponent pointed out, hey, this guy took money from people. And then he said, well, I won't take money from people. I thought, but you've already taken money from people. Lots of them. I mean, you're a really, really rich businessman. But you took a whole bunch of money from people for your campaign. We know that because every 7 days you have to tell the government how much money you took from people. And that amount is larger than zero. But his opponent, I don't remember his name, starts with a B. Let's call him Bob. It's not Bob, but let's call him Bob. Bob he's been driving Senator Torricelli crazy because he keeps going, I will not be Senator Torricelli. And I thought, well, of course you won't. Your name is different. I mean, I don't think you even look similar. I mean, when you get to Washington, you'll be the same. You'll be a weasel. All politicians in Washington are weasels. Something magical about Washington. I mean, it's not a state. It's a district. It's a district of weasels. So poor Senator Torricelli, I mean, he's not a nice guy. We know that. He's a weasel. But yesterday, he had to resign. He had to say, well, not resign. He said, I'm not going to run again. One problem with saying I'm not going to run again. He already is running again. Like, his name's been on the ballot. They had a primary. Purpose of a primary? To pick the guy that's going to run for your party, come November 4th. Only one problem. He's already on the ballot. He's been on the ballot for a while. Why is he on the ballot? He's on the ballot because he won the Democratic primary. I don't think there even was a Democratic primary. I think he was the only guy in the Democratic primary, which is, again, a kind of confusing concept because how do you have a primary if there's only one guy running in a particular thing? But so he decides, well, I guess there's just zero chance of me winning in November, and I don't want this seat to go over to a Republican because we all know they're evil. I mean, Democrats are evil, Republicans are evil, politicians are evil. Why? Because they're weasels. So he said, well, I guess I can't win, so they'll have to pick someone else to run. But again, he's already running. So now what happens? All of a sudden, the Republicans are like, well, you can't not run. My whole campaign is based on me not being you and running. And if you don't run, then who am I? Ah! I mean, just an existential crisis, I'm sure, went on in Bob's mind. Now, today I'm driving over here, I hear, so the Democrats decided to go to the state and say, well, we don't want you to put Senator Torricelli's name on the ballot. We're going to put someone else's name on the ballot. Some other guy, a weasel, I mean, a certified weasel because he actually was in Washington before, and then he left, he resigned. Didn't resign, he left office because he finished. He'd weaseled enough, and now he's going to go back and weasel again if he wins. So now they want to put his name on the ballot. Now the Republican weasels say you can't do that. It's not fair. You're not allowed to change who's the Democrat primary. And the Democrat Party went, well, yes, we are. That's the whole purpose. See, the Democratic Party has a primary to pick who goes on the ballot, And then the Democratic Party tells the state, hey, we'd like this guy to be on the ballot. And then that's the guy that's on the ballot. So see, they changed their mind. And now everyone's unhappy. But today, now this will probably be different tomorrow because it's going to get appealed. But today, the new Democrat's in the ticket. So again, Senator Torricelli not running. Bob still running. No campaign because his campaign was, I'm not Senator Torricelli. And now his opponent's tagline is, I'm also not Senator Torricelli. I mean, that's really a campaign line that works for everyone, except Senator Torricelli. And he could probably even claim it. He could probably go, I'm the new Senator Torricelli. But he was trying to do that and it didn't work. Okay. A lot of people have written in about this. They want some more information on my idea for solving this whole Mideast problem. Remember I talked about it a couple weeks ago. A couple months ago now. And I said I had the perfect solution to all these problems in the Middle East. And people wrote in and went, Keith, that was a fabulous plan. When does the UN implement it? And truthfully, right now the UN's kind of busy because apparently we're going to go to war with Iraq or something. And they got to have meetings and plan things and not allow us to do things and let us do things and have other meetings and be angry at us and not be angry at us. And the UN is very busy right now, which I assume is why they haven't had a chance to implement the Statenfield plan for peace in the Mideast. But in the meantime, I mean, the area continues to go to hell in a handbasket. And just every week it seems to get worse. I mean, like a week ago, apparently Sharon got angry at Arafat, and he thought, well, the last time I got angry at Arafat, I sent a whole bunch of tanks in to near where Arafat was, and they knocked over a bunch of buildings. And that worked so incredibly well, I'm going to do it again. So he sent a whole bunch more tanks in. Now, apparently Arafat's offices used to be in this really nice compound that the British built for when they used to rule Palestine with an iron fist. I never quite understood why Britain ruled Palestine. It probably had something to do with World War II. Because like at the end of World War II, we just divided up the world, and Great Britain, not an empire anymore, got stuck with Palestine. But they had this really nice compound, apparently. Had a nice wall, had some nice office buildings, nice architecture. And that's where Yasser Arafat's offices were. Or say were, because Israel just sent in bulldozers and big tanks, and they bulldozed pretty much the whole thing flat. So that there's one building left. The building that Yasser Arafat was in. It's got like no power, it's got no plumbing. It's just a brick building with a couple floors. Yasser Arafat crouching with a cell phone, calling Time magazine, telling them, you wouldn't believe what they're doing. They're bulldozing things. And Time's like, we already printed that. I mean, call us when something new happens. Because, news got to be new. If the same thing happens, not new, it's not news. Man bites dog, that's news. Dog bites man, happens all the time, not news. So anyway, people been blown up. People been shooting at each other. People been knocking buildings over with the tanks. See, we have tried to let them solve problems, and it hasn't worked. So again, I'm going to talk about the Keith Statenfield solution to peace in the Middle East. Or, more colloquially, the North Dakota solution. Now again, we take North Dakota. It's a state. Some of you may have never heard of it because it's North Dakota. I mean, no one lives there. There's no reason you ever would have heard of it. Maybe if you watched that Dances with Wolves movie, you probably read about North Dakota or something. But otherwise, you never hear about North Dakota. North Dakota's never going to get the Olympics. Nothing interesting is ever going to happen in North Dakota. I mean, there aren't even any celebrities that own ranches in North Dakota. I mean, all the celebrities own ranches in Montana and maybe some in Nebraska, second-rate celebrities. But North Dakota, we don't need it. I mean, it's not like New Mexico. I mean, New Mexico's kind of a weird state because I heard a funny joke, which was years ago when we had the Olympics. People were calling to get tickets for Olympic events. Someone from New Mexico called and said, called Little Olympics in Atlanta, said, I want a ticket for the Atlanta Olympics. And they said, well, where do you live? And they said, well, I live in New Mexico. And the operator said, well, you've got to call the Olympic Committee for your country. He said, I did call the Olympic Committee for my country. She said, no, you need to call the Mexican Olympics. See, no, North Dakota is not like that. North Dakota is just a state that no one lives in. And again, I'll repeat my numbers. North Dakota has 1.8 million people living in it. Now, for comparison, California has 34 million people. So we got like 17 times as many people as North Dakota. So the North Dakota solution, we take everyone who lives in North Dakota, we move them out here to California. Now, a lot of you have written in with concerns about this. They've said, wouldn't that many people in California cause problems? So I looked it up. Let's imagine none of these people get jobs, not a single one. Now, originally I was going to give them jobs as web designers, but web design is not as lucrative a field as it used to be. But we'll find something for them to do. I mean, they're from North Dakota. They have skills. They're farmers, I think, so we could set them to farming things. We probably want to move a lot of them to the Central Valley, okay? We have more unemployed people in California than there are people that need jobs in Nebraska right now. So, worst case, it's going to double California's jobless rate. But on the plus side, we will have solved the whole Mideast problem. So I think that's a good thing, because we'll find jobs for them once they're here. I mean, they're from North Dakota. They don't know what things are supposed to cost. You know, we can pay them nothing, and they'll be glad to work as cheap web designers or something. Okay, so now we got North Dakota empty. Now we take North Dakota, we paint a big black line smack down the middle. Just, you know, maybe 20, 25 feet wide. And we call that no man's land or something. And then take everyone in Israel, we move them to the east half. We rename that New Israel. Take everyone in Palestine and the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and we move all of them to the west half. We call that New Palestine. And now we tell them, please don't bomb each other. You've each got huge countries compared to how big, you used to be living. Because Palestinians, from what I understand, are like stand-in room only, because the West Bank is very tiny. In Israel, not huge. So, we could rename whatever the capital of North Dakota is. We could rename it Jerusalem. And likewise, we could rename whatever the other capital of North Dakota is, also name it Jerusalem. That way, each side could get Jerusalem, just like God promised them or something. Now, this is another thing people have written in to tell me. They've said, Keith, no one is going to want to move here because God promised them this land. I got the perfect solution for that, okay? We got Steven Spielberg on our side, okay? You want a burning bush that says, hey, I'm moving the promised land to North Dakota. I'm sure he could whip it up in a week and a half. Those Toy Story guys. It was amazing what they could do. Star Wars 1 and 2, they sucked, but, they had this huge stadium and it looked full of people and they had the pod races. You would never be able to tell it apart from a real burning bush. Or, and we could have Muhammad come back really quickly and go, hey, New Palestine, it's where North Dakota used to be. I'm moving Mecca there too, just for the heck of it. These are all solvable problems, people. We merely need to apply the right solution, okay? And then after we get them out of there, suddenly all of Israel's empty. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but Israel, I think we could get into Iraq from there. Then, we put the trucks down, we drive into Iraq, we knock on Saddam Hussein's door, and we say, excuse me, Mr. Hussein, it's time for you to leave. And he comes out, he gets in the limo, we drive him back here, we put him in prison, I think, for blowing up the World Trade Center or something. I don't know what he did, but I'm told that we got to get him. So that's what we do. It's been a lovely half hour, people. I'll see you 2 more weeks from now. Please write www.keithexplains.com. Have a nice night.